Hey guys, and welcome to my studio, also known as my living room. And this week I've had the urge to purge. So I went through all of my sewing stuff and I threw away about 3 garbage bags full of crap and then donated some more stuff. And it does feel a little better, but I have a bunch of scraps to sew and it's going to have to wait. Because you see, this was a challenging week in the shop. Not only were in sales, but my machine decided to stop working. That's right, no feed dog action. And that makes it hard to sew anything, especially if it's small. The larger things I was able to make work by pulling them through the machine, but the stitches were uneven, and I thought I was going to lose my mind. So, sewing on a curve was definitely a no go. Add to that some spotty internet service and printer issues. Oh, and I left the lid off my dry sand, and a cat peed in it. Totally my bad, but I have to get more sand now and take the time to dry it. I did get to finish one of my fun projects, and I'm going to call it my autopsy doll. I had this piece of black cotton and the zipper in my stash, so I didn't have to buy anything for this entire project. I started out by making one of my bigger doll patterns, and then I lined the body. And then I created some organs for it. Some of the organs are weighted with sand, and some of them have like plastic beads for texture. Some are actually just soft cotton or empty, like the stomach. I even made felt pieces of chicken and broccoli to put in the stomach for someone to find later in an examination. It's a kind of doll that I would have liked as a kid, and I clearly remember having a plastic doctor's kit. Pretend play is the best. The organs aren't to scale, but I'm happy with it, and I'd like to do more with this idea. With the state of my machine this week, I had to switch to projects that I could do with my serger. And for that, I had a crate of skirts that I used to wear when I was a teacher. So, if you didn't already know, I used to teach high school government, history, and psychology for a while before the pandemic. And I used to wear these fun printed skirts almost every day. There were about 19 of them in total. And they're all made from the same 1990s pattern in varying lengths and waist measurements. I love them, but they're gathering dust. Sometimes it's hard for me to part with fabric that I love, and some of these skirts are pretty great. I'm never going to wear them again for a few reasons, but I do want to keep the fabric, so I have decided that they're going to become a quilt. Because of the shape of the panels and the seam lines on these skirts, I decided to go with a diamond shaped quilt pattern. And some of the patches are going to have some seams on them, but I don't really mind about that. On some of them, you can't even tell. So to get started, I used the template to mark the corners of the shape with a crayon, and then I used a rotary cutter to cut them out. And then I cut some of the remaining fabric into 2-inch strips so I could make a border for the outside edge of the quilt and use up the waste. I also have a surplus of white fabric from a big project that I did this spring, so I cut strips out of that too. The skirts made about 150 patches, which I hope is going to make a decent sized quilt. I used my serger to sew the diamonds to the strips, and I learned the hard way that they all have to be attached to the strip in the same position. So I chose to sew them all on the lower right hand side. And then they were each pressed and then cut and then sprayed with starch and pressed again because I really like my fabric to be stiff when I'm sewing quilts. Maintaining the measurements on a quilt can just be a little too precise sometimes, but it's a good thing I don't mind imperfections. And then I had a glorious buffet of fabrics ready for quilt construction. So I started laying them out and piecing them together. And, as it turns out, I mixed in a 2-inch strip with the 1.5-inch strips, and I'm already off to a bad start. But I can fix it. This quilt is just for me, so that's not a big deal. And then once I replace my sewing machine, I also have a few side projects queued up. I made this fish pattern. It's a salmon, actually. And then I constructed one with an open belly. So, yeah, I'm still working with that autopsy theme here. I'm also getting my free November pattern ready. It's a turkey with detachable drumsticks and wings and an open cavity so it can be stuffed. So much fun for Thanksgiving Day. I also have some scraps over here that need to be used up. One is this grayish fabric that was a lining for drapes. And then I have this gray cotton that will go with it. And I want to put the two together and make a big shark with an open mouth to either climb in or maybe hide some treasure in there. I also have this red fleece, which is actually a throw blanket, but I'm going to turn it into blank puppets. I made green ones last year and people seem to like them, so I guess I'll try it again this year. Anyway, that's all I got done this week without a sewing machine, and hopefully next week will be going better. Let me know what projects you're working on down in the comments below, and until next time, I'll see you later. Bye.